is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. And now your host, Hélène Laffitte.
And welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the podcast where we decode the art and science of buying and using consulting services strategically, efficiently, and with confidence. I'm Hélène Laffitte, your host and the CEO at Consulting Quest. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. That way you won't miss any of our weekly deep dive on how to get more value on your consulting spend. Now, on to today's topic, and it's one that's everywhere right now, generative AI and its impact on consulting delivery models. You've seen the post on LinkedIn, 10 prompts to replace McKinsey consultants, or how ChatGPT will kill the consulting industry. Oh, they get clicks, sure, but are they true? Spoiler alert, not even close. Gen AI is powerful, yes. It's transforming how work is delivered, but it's not magic. It's math. And unless you really understand how it works, you risk being dazzled by hype while missing the real opportunities. So in this episode, we're going to explore why those AI will replace consultants claims are pure fantasy, how Gen AI actually works and why that matters for clients, where AI is genuinely changing consulting delivery, because it is. And more importantly, what smart clients should do right now to separate the signal from the noise. But here's the thing, AI isn't going to end consulting, but it will end bad consulting. And if you're a client, that's actually very good news. All right, let's step a step back. Because before we talk about how AI is changing consulting, we need to understand how it actually works. And here's the thing, generative AI isn't magic, it's math. It's what we call a probabilistic model, which is just a fancy way of saying it doesn't know the truth, it just predicts the next most likely word. Think of it like an autocomplete on steroids. You type a question, it generates the answer that sounds the most plausible, based on pattern it has seen in its training data. But here's the catch. Because it is probability, not certainty, it's never 100% accurate. If the data it was trained on is wrong, outdated, or biased, well, guess what? The output will be too, and it will still sound very, very convincing. Now, let's make this very concrete. Imagine you're a mid-sized chemical company in Eastern Europe. You're growing fast, you've got a decentralized setup, and your edge is that you're different from the giant like BASF or Dow. So you ask ChatGPT, what are the best pricing strategies in our industry? And what do you get back? A smooth, confident answer, all about scale efficiencies, US-centric models, global best practices. Perfect. If you're a Fortune 500 giant, but totally wrong for you. Why? Because you are an outlier. And Gen AI has a hard time with outliers. It's trained on the average, not the exceptional. And here's the dangerous part. The answer will sound great. It will sound smart, but it will be confidently wrong. And that's why you as a client need to understand this. And that's why you as a client need to understand this. Gen AI is a brilliant tool for drafting, summarizing, scanning data. But it's not built to deliver groundbreaking thought. It's not built to challenge assumptions. And it's definitely not built to understand the unique context of your organization. That's the job of humans, of consultants, of you. So why do people keep saying things like 10 prompts to replace McKinsey consultants? What does that line get so much traction? Well, first because it's fun. It plays into the frustration of a lot of executives when they look at $1 million consulting bill and think, wait, what, for PowerPoint slides, really? And second, because there's a grain of truth in it. Let's be honest, a big chunk of what junior consultants used to do, desk research, competitor scan, or drafting endless slides, can be down faster and cheaper with AI. And clients are right to notice that, but here's the catch. Replacing busy work is not the same as replacing consulting. Yes, GenAI can generate a first draft of a market analysis in seconds, but that's not the real value of consulting. The real value is in knowing which questions matter, how to interpret the data, and how to turn it into a strategy your organization can actually execute. And here's another reason those posts get so much attention. They tap into a fantasy. The fantasy that there's a shortcut, a magic one that will save you from hard, messy human problems. And it's tempting, but it's just that, a fantasy. Because prompts don't manage politics, prompts don't align stakeholders, and prompts don't lead change. So yes, the hype exists because people are frustrated and because AI can really automate some of the grunt work. But don't confuse that with the heavy lifting of a transformation. AI may kill the tech factories, but it's not killing consulting. So now we're going to shift gear and look at what AI is actually changing in consulting delivery and what it means for you as a client. So we know that AI isn't replacing consultants. But where is it making a difference there? Because make no mistake, it's reshaping how consulting is delivered. So let's break it down. First, research and data crunching. What used to take junior consulting weeks compiling industry reports, scanning thousands of documents, cleaning spreadsheets, can now be done in hours with AI. And that means faster turnaround, fewer repetitive tasks, and ideally lower cost for you as a client. Second, diagnosis and benchmarking. GenAI tools can sift through your internal data and compare it against industry benchmarks and find patterns you might miss. For instance, spotting inefficiencies in procurement spend or predicting demand fluctuation. It's not perfect, but it's a powerful accelerant. Third, drafting and synthesis. Whether it's writing a first draft of an RFP, summarizing stakeholders' interviews, or generating scenario outlines, AI can help create starting points that consultants can then refine with context and judgment. Think of it as a turbocharged assistant, not a replacement. Fourth, visualization and simulation. Some firms are already using AI to create dynamic models, showing you how a strategy could play out under different conditions. Instead of a static slides, you get living interactive scenarios. But now here's a nuance. AI isn't taking over the thinking, it's speeding up the doing. And that's already a big deal. Because if consultants spend less time on grunt work, they should spend more time on what actually creates value, interpretation, judgment, and change management. Well, at least that's the theory. Whether those savings get passed on to clients, well, that's another question. Now we need to talk about how smart clients can really make sure AI in consulting is a value driver and not just a buzzword on an expensive proposal. And that's what I call AI washing. Because just like greenwashing in sustainability, some consulting firms are using AI more in their marketing than in their delivery. Even though we saw recently that sometimes they should use it less in the delivery, actually. But that's another story. How it usually shows up, right? First, you have the buzzword bingo. You'll see proposal loaded with vague phrases or proprietary AI platform, advanced machine learning models, cutting-edge predictive insights. Sounds impressive, right? But when you dig deeper, it often means they're just running a prompt through ChatGPT like the rest of us. Second, there's the black box trick. Some firms try to wrap AI into mystery. A secret algorithm will optimize your strategy. Well, right. The problem, if they can't explain how it works, you can't evaluate whether it's actually useful for your context. And remember, AI is only as good as the data behind it. Third, the recycled dashboard. A shiny interface with colorful chart doesn't mean you're getting real insight. Sometimes you're just looking at rebranded output from generic tools. So what should you do as a client? Don't let the buzzwords slide. Ask the hard questions. What exactly is the AI doing in this project? Can you show me a real case where it improved outcomes for a client like us? How will you measure the value created by using AI versus not using it? And crucially, if AI makes you faster, are those savings reflected in your pricing? Because there's a truth. AI should make consulting leaner and smarter. And if all it does is pad the proposal with fancy jargon, you're not getting value. You're getting smoke and mirrors. So next time you see proprietary AI solution in your deck, don't be dazzled, be skeptical, ask for the receipt. And now we're going to try to flip the perspective. When should you actually welcome AI in consulting, and when should you insist on the human touch? Because now we've called out the hype, and we need to get practical. Why should you actually welcome AI into a consulting project? Let's start with the good news. AI is fantastic for things like data gathering and synthesis. You need a market scan, competitive benchmark, or a summary of thousands of survey responses. AI can chew through that in a record time. Drafting and structuring, whether it's a first draft of an RFP, a baseline project plan, or a summary of stakeholders' interviews, AI gives you a head start. Now, diagnosis. Spotting patterns in your procurement spend, flagging inefficiencies in your supply chain. There are things AI can accelerate. Scenario testing. Some advanced tools can simulate different outcomes and give you interactive models to play with. That's a real value add when done right. Yes, anything repetitive, large scale, or heavy data driven, AI is your friend. Now, let's get to the bad news. There are areas where AI simply cannot deliver. And if someone tells you otherwise, they're overselling it. Sensitive transformations. If you're redesigning your organization or restructuring your leadership model, you don't want AI input. You need trust, you need nuance, and you need human judgment. Then stakeholder alignment. AI can't walk into a room, read the politics, and convince your CFO or your CEO to finally agree on priorities. Innovation and vision. By design, AI predicts the average. It does not generate the groundbreaking ideas that make your company stand out. Now, contextual strategy. Remember our mid-sized chemicals company from earlier? AI will default to the mainstream. If you're an outlier, and many successful companies are, AI won't understand what makes you unique. So here's the takeaway. Use AI to augment, not to automate. Let it speed up the busy work, yes, but don't outsource the thinking, the judgment, and the leadership. That's where humans, and therefore good consultants, still earn their place to the table. So what does that mean for you as a client? How the very definition of consulting value is shifting in a post-AI world, and how should you rethink what you're paying for? It means the definition of consulting value is shifting. In the old model, you were often paying for time, long hours, big teams, endless slides. The output was the tech, the big binder of recommendation. But if AI can do the research in hours, draft a report in minutes, and crunch data at lightning speed, then what are you actually paying for? You're not paying for slides anymore. You're paying for insight. You're paying for expertise, for execution. And that has two big implications. First, pricing. If AI is reducing the grunt work, clients are right to push back on paying the same old hourly rates or daily rates. You should expect more value from the same money, or the same value for less money. Outcome-based pricing is going to matter more than ever. Second scope, instead of asking consultants to analyze the market or run diagnostics, you should challenge them to focus on interpretation and implementation. In other words, don't pay for the raw material, pay for the craft, right? But here's the truth. AI won't end consulting, but it will end bad consulting. You know, the firms that were just reselling research and packaging generic frameworks, yeah, they'll be exposed. And that's good news for you. But it means you can and you should demand more transparency, more creativity, and more impact from the consulting firm you work with. So the question isn't, will AI replace consultants? The real question is, how do you make sure AI makes consulting better for clients? All right, time for recap. Generative AI is not replacing consulting, but it's reshaping it. So we've seen why those 10 prompts to replace McKinsey posts are clickbait. We've unpacked how Gen AI really works, probabilistic, not magical, and why that matters. We've explored where AI genuinely helps research, diagnostics, drafting, modeling. And we've drawn the line on where it doesn't: politics, transformation, vision, context. We'll also call out the dangers of AI washing and why you should demand transparency from your consulting partners. And finally, we reframe what you're really paying for. Not text, not hours, but insight and expertise and execution. So here's the takeaway I want to leave you with. AI won't end consulting, but it will end bad consulting. And as a client, that puts you in the driver's seat. You get to demand more value, more impact, and yes, more honesty from your consulting partners. Now, before we wrap up, and if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to Smart Consulting Sourcing on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you listen. That's where you won't miss the next deep dive. And if you want to talk about how to leverage AI in your consulting project without failing from the high, head over to consultingquest.com and book a free consultation with us. We'll help you make AI work for you and not against you. So I'm Hélène Laffitte, and this has been Smart Consulting Sourcing. Thank you for listening. Stay smart, and I'll see you next time. Au revoir.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.laffitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.